Have you ever noticed how the most powerful people in any room seem to do the least? They don't hustle frantically. They don't prove themselves constantly. They simply position themselves correctly, and suddenly everything flows toward them. The opportunities, the respect, the resources. Now imagine if you stopped grinding yourself into exhaustion and started playing this different game. What if I told you that your relentless effort is actually diminishing your power? That the more you sweat, the less valuable you appear? That's where the real secret lies. Because power isn't about how hard you work. It's about where you stand when the world turns. You have been taught that effort equals results. Work hard, they said. Pay your dues. Prove yourself through tireless dedication. And so you did. You worked weekends. You answered emails at midnight. You said yes to every request, took on every project, demonstrated your worth through sheer exhaustion. But here's a truth that perhaps no one has told you with this clarity. Your overexertion is making you forgettable. Do you know why? Because being always busy makes you seem replaceable. When you're constantly working, constantly available, constantly proving yourself, you become part of the machinery. You're the person who gets things done, sure, but you're not the person who controls the game. And there's a massive difference between being useful and being powerful. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. Fortune is a woman, and it is necessary, if you wish to master her, to conquer her by force. But here's what most people miss. Machiavelli wasn't talking about brute effort. He was talking about strategic positioning, about seizing the right moment with decisive action. The hardest workers are rarely the most powerful. Think about it. Who gets promoted? The person staying late every night, or the person who makes strategic relationships? Who builds wealth? The person working 3 jobs, or the person who positions themselves in the right market at the right time? This is the paradox nobody wants to admit. Effort becomes invisible. Position becomes undeniable. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And right now, your unconscious programming is destroying your power. You believe that if you just work hard enough, someone will finally see your value. But the truth is darker. The more desperate your effort, the more others discount it. Why? Because humans don't value what appears abundant. We value scarcity, mystery, the thing that seems just beyond reach. When you make yourself too available through constant work, you train others to expect your labor without appreciating it. Your boss knows you'll stay late, so your extra hours become the baseline. Your clients know you'll respond immediately, so they feel entitled to your time. Your network knows you're always hustling, so they see you as hungry, not as valuable. And I know what you're thinking, but if I don't work this hard, someone else will take my spot. That fear-based programming keeps you trapped while others ascend through strategic positioning. Machiavelli watched the power dynamics of Renaissance Italy, where princes rose and fell not based on work ethic, but on strategic acumen. The leader who made every decision appeared weak. The one always accessible appeared desperate. The one who explained themselves constantly appeared uncertain. Real power came from calculated restraint, from creating the perception of effortless superiority. But here's what most people don't realize. This isn't about being lazy. It's about being strategic with your energy. Every hour you spend on low-value work is an hour you're not spending on high-leverage positioning. Every time you prove yourself to someone who should already know your worth, you're training them to question it. Every moment you're busy, you're unavailable for the opportunity that could change everything. And that is what we will talk about in the next part. Because your positioning determines your power, and most people are standing in exactly the wrong place. Let's talk about something uncomfortable. You're addicted to effort. Not because effort works, but because effort feels safe. When you're working hard, you can tell yourself you're making progress. When you're busy, you can avoid the terrifying question, am I actually building power, or just building exhaustion? And the answer for most people is devastating. They're building nothing except a reputation for being useful, which is the opposite of being essential. Machiavelli wrote The Prince as a manual for actual power acquisition. One of his central insights was that successful princes understood perception management. He wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." Think about that. Your reality matters less than your appearance. Your effort matters less than your positioning. Machiavelli wasn't advocating deception. He was revealing that power operates in the realm of perception, and if you're not consciously crafting that perception, others will craft it to their advantage, not yours. Here's the mechanism nobody wants to acknowledge. When you're constantly visible, constantly working, constantly available, you appear common. Not because your work isn't valuable, but because humans assign value based on scarcity. A diamond in every pocket is worthless. A diamond in one vault is priceless. Your constant effort makes you the former. Strategic positioning makes you the latter. Carl Jung spoke about the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted by society. But when you adopt the persona of the hard worker, you're accepting a role in someone else's play. You're saying, "I'll be the one who does the work and you can be the one who takes the credit." You're positioning yourself as the support character in a story where you should be the protagonist, and support characters work until they're exhausted. Then they're replaced. Because the system doesn't need you specifically. It needs someone willing to play that role. Strategic idleness isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing the right thing at the right time while appearing relaxed the rest of the time. Machiavelli observed that successful leaders made decisive moves during critical moments, but maintained an air of casual control otherwise. They weren't constantly proving themselves, because they had already positioned themselves as indispensable through what he called virtù. Capability combined with positioning combined with timing. Think about the people you consider powerful. Do they seem frantic? Do they constantly explain their value? Or do they have a quality of certainty, of knowing their worth without needing validation? That quality doesn't come from working harder. It comes from positioning yourself so correctly that your value is self-evident. And here's the cruelest point. The more you work to prove your value, the more you signal that your value is questionable. Sigmund Freud talked about repetition compulsion, the unconscious drive to repeat destructive patterns. Right now, you're caught in a repetition compulsion around work. You work hard, get validation. The validation fades. You work harder to get it back. But the validation never lasts because you're seeking external approval for an internal positioning problem. You're trying to earn a seat at a table where you should be demanding a chair through strategic values. Now stop and think. Where are you spending your energy? Are you working on tasks that make you essential or tasks that make you useful? Are you building relationships with power or relationships with busy work? Are you creating the perception of effortless authority or desperate availability? The person who appears to work hard is seen as someone who has to work hard. The person who appears relaxed while achieving results is seen as naturally talented, as powerful. It's not fair. It's not moral. But it's true. Jung said, "We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." So let's make this darkness conscious. Your addiction to effort is a defense mechanism. It's easier to stay busy than to ask, if I stopped proving myself, would anyone notice my value? That fear keeps you trapped. The real question isn't whether they'd notice. The question is, why do you need external validation? You haven't yet claimed your power. You're still asking permission to be essential instead of making yourself essential. And that is what we need to change. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. So how do you actually do this? How do you transition from exhausted worker to positioned authority? The answer is uncomfortable. You have to withdraw your effort from where it's not appreciated and concentrate it where it creates leverage. And this terrifies people because it means saying no, letting things fail, accepting that you can't control everything through work ethic. Machiavelli's core insight was that princes needed to be both the lion and the fox. The lion represents force. The fox represents cunning and positioning. Most people try to be all lion, all obvious effort. But the lion without the fox gets trapped. You need the strategic intelligence to position yourself before you exert force. Here's the practical framework. First, you audit your energy expenditure. Where are you spending time that generates no leverage? What work makes you useful but not essential? Who are you proving yourself to? Who will never see your value? Write it down. Then start withdrawing from those areas. Not all at once, but systematically. You start being less available. You start delivering results without the performance of exhaustion. You start letting some things fail so others see what happens when you're not holding everything together. Second, you identify leverage points. Where do small actions create outsized results? This is where you concentrate. Machiavelli understood that limited resources needed to be positioned at the fulcrum points of power, not spread everywhere equally. Most people spread themselves thin, trying to be good at everything, valuable to everyone, and end up essential to no one. You need to be essential to the right people in the right contexts and irrelevant everywhere else. Third, you cultivate calculated unavailability. Unavailability creates perceived value. When you're always available, you train others to devalue your time. When you're strategically unavailable, you force others to plan around you, to respect your schedule, to understand that access to you is valuable. You create response delays. You don't answer immediately. You batch communications. You have hours where you're unreachable. You say no without explanations. Watch what happens. At first, people will be irritated. But if you hold the boundary, something shifts. They start respecting your time. They start valuing your input because it's not constant. They start positioning you as important because only important people have boundaries. Strategic idleness isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing the right things and making it look effortless. The person who stays late every night rarely gets promoted. The person who delivers visible wins during key moments while maintaining calm demeanor. That person rises. Why? Because they appear to have the situation under control. They appear powerful, while the frantic person appears desperate, overextended, maxed out. Nobody promotes someone who already looks maxed out. Fourth, you build what Machiavelli would call your state. Your base of power, independent of any single relationship. This means developing rare and valuable skills, building relationships through mutual benefit, not servitude, creating multiple sources of opportunity so you're never dependent on one source, and establishing a reputation that precedes you. How? Not through constant work, but through strategic visibility. You make sure your wins are visible. You associate yourself with success, you position yourself in rooms where power circulates, and you maintain an air of ease. Jung talked about individuation, becoming your true self rather than the self society expects. When you're constantly working to prove yourself, you're not individuating. You're conforming. You're accepting that your value comes from productivity, from availability, from sacrifice. But true individuation means defining your own value, setting your own terms, and refusing to participate in systems that diminish you. Now let's talk about timing. Machiavelli wasn't saying never work hard. He was saying work hard at the right moment. There are times when intense effort is necessary, but those times are rare. Most of life is positioning, waiting, preparing, so that when the critical moment comes, you can act decisively and it appears effortless. Think of martial arts. The master stays relaxed, conserving energy, reading the situation, then strikes precisely when the moment is right. That's power. The amateur flails constantly and remains exhausted and ineffective. Fifth, manage perception actively. Machiavelli's insight. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. When you achieve something, how do you present it? Do you emphasize how hard it was, how many hours you sacrificed? Because if you do, you're training people to see you as someone who has to work hard. Or do you present it as a natural result of your capability? The latter creates effortless authority. And here comes the resistance. But isn't this manipulative? Is it dishonest to dress well for an interview? Is it manipulative to smile when meeting someone? We're always managing perception. The question is whether you're doing it consciously or self-destructively. Right now, you're managing perception to look hard-working and available, which paradoxically makes you look less powerful. What I'm suggesting is managing perception to accurately reflect your value. But the deepest transformation is internal. You need to genuinely believe that your value isn't tied to constant effort. You need to internalize that position matters more than perspiration. Machiavelli understood, and Jung would agree, that you can be strategic and ethical. You can care about people and still protect your positioning. If you want to help people at scale, you need power. And power requires strategic thinking, not just good intentions. When you stop working frantically and start positioning strategically, something profound happens. First comes the space. Actual time and energy you're no longer pouring into low-value work. And in that space, you begin to see opportunities you were too busy to notice. You start having conversations with interesting people because you're not exhausted. You start seeing patterns because you have mental bandwidth. You start taking calculated risks because you're not already maxed out. Then comes the shift in how others see you. The people who valued you for constant availability fade away. Good riddance. They were never seeing you anyway. They were seeing a function, a tool. But new people start to notice you. People who respect boundaries. People who value strategic thinking. People who operate at a level where positioning matters more than hustle. Suddenly, you're in different conversations, at different tables, playing a different game. Your energy changes. When you're not constantly proving yourself, you develop what Jung would call integration, the quality of someone who's not split between their authentic self and their performing self. Machiavelli would call it authority, knowing your value without needing validation. People feel it. You walk into a room differently. You speak with more weight. You listen more because you're not desperately trying to prove anything. The opportunities change. Instead of taking whatever work comes, you become selective. And here's the paradox. The more selective you become, the more opportunities appear. Because people want what's scarce, what's hard to get, what requires them to rise to your level. You stop chasing opportunities and start choosing them. And the deepest change is internal. You stop defining yourself by productivity. You stop feeling guilty for rest. You stop believing your worth comes from exhaustion. Instead, you understand you're playing a longer game where position matters more than constant motion. Machiavelli said, "Fortune favors the bold and the prepared." Preparation isn't about working every hour. It's about positioning yourself so that when fortune presents an opportunity, you're standing in exactly the right place to seize it effortlessly. This is the rebirth. Not into a lazy person, but a strategic one. Not into someone who doesn't work, but someone who works at the right things at the right times. You become someone who wins without appearing to work for it, because you've learned Machiavelli's deepest secret. Power flows from where you stand, not how hard you work. Today, we learned from Niccolò Machiavelli that positioning creates power more reliably than perspiration. And from Carl Jung that true individuation requires refusing to sacrifice yourself on the altar of others' expectations. Your exhaustion is not a badge of honor. It's a strategic error. Your constant availability is not generosity. It's the abdication of power. And your frantic effort is not creating results. It's creating the perception that you're someone who has to work frantically. The path forward isn't about becoming lazy. It's about becoming strategic. It's about withdrawing your energy from where it's not valued and concentrating it where it creates leverage. It's about understanding that the game isn't won by the hardest worker, but by the smartest player. Now tell me in the comments, what's one area where you're overworking and underpositioning? Where are you exhausting yourself instead of strategically placing yourself? Write it down. Make it conscious. If this message shifted something in you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit that like button to share this wisdom with others who need to hear it. Subscribe to join our community, where we dive deeper into life-changing ideas every week. We're building a community of people who refuse to sacrifice power for the appearance of virtue, who understand that strategy isn't manipulation, but intelligence. And remember, winning without working isn't about laziness, it's about leverage. It's about positioning. It's about understanding that in the game of power, where you stand matters infinitely more than how hard you push. Machiavelli saw this 5 centuries ago. Jung understood it in the context of psychological sovereignty. And now you understand it too. Until we meet again, position yourself wisely. Conserve your energy strategically. And remember, the throne doesn't go to the hardest worker. It goes to the best positioned player. Explore with us more ideas that transform how we see ourselves and the world. Wishing you strategic clarity and effortless authority until we meet again. May you find our talks not only educational, but also inspirational and, hopefully, ultimately, transformational. See you next time.